Thank you, Nikki. Welcome, everyone. This is our 285th Roundtable breakfast since I started them in 2001, right after 9/11. These breakfasts are co-sponsored by the Association for Conflict Resolution of Greater New York and the City University of New York Dispute Resolution Center at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I'm Maria Volpe, and I'm a professor at John Jay College. Each month, these breakfasts are made possible by a wonderful committee of facilitators and conveners that consists of Matthew Latimer, Nikki Borofsky, Kirsten Pugh, and Chloe Choi. Since the pandemic, we've been meeting online, and all of these recordings are now posted on YouTube, and Nikki will post the YouTube link in the chat so that you can access all of them. Prior to the pandemic, we met at John Jay. Just so that you know, and I know many of you have been asking whether we're going to meet again in person. We've been now trying to schedule a session in person in the fall and in the spring. So next month, April, will continue to be online. Our speaker will be Zaza Johnson El Sheikh from the United Kingdom. In May, Giuseppe DiPaolo, former ombudsperson at the UN and currently at JAMS, will be our in-person speaker. We invite you all to come to John Jay. We will be posting the announcements on the listserv. So for those of you who might not be on the NYC-DR listserv, please do send me your email address, and I will be happy to add you to that listserv so that you get all of the messages. Our June speaker will be Nancy Welsh from Texas A&M Law School. July, Jim Malamed from mediate.com. We're working on August. September will be Frank Dukes from the University of Virginia, who's a public policy and environmental mediator. October, we're working on, and November will be John Paul Lederach. So we have the next couple of months planned and look forward to seeing all of you. This morning, we are so delighted to have with us an amazing team of conflict resolvers who will be sharing with us an important way of thinking about how to deal with conflicts. Leading that team is Carl Smallwood. I had the pleasure of co-facilitating with Carl this summer when we had the Divided Community project that he heads at Fordham Law School. And to further introduce him, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki. But before I do, Kirsten, are you still on? Do you want to make a quick message about the upcoming ACR-GMY conference?
Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I will pop this in the chat again in case you missed it, but the ACR-GNY, or the Association for Conflict Resolution of Greater New York, has their annual conference coming up June 4th through 6th. It will be virtual, so we hope you can attend. And also, in the meantime, we do have our call for proposals open, so we do hope that you'll consider submitting a proposal. People who are practitioners, scholars, researchers, from all different kind of corners of the conflict resolution field do apply and present. There's a lot of diversity of thought and experience, so we hope you will consider contributing as well. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Kirsten. And now, Nikki, take it away and introducing Carl, who will introduce the team.
Thank you, Maria. I'm going to go fast because I know there's better than a glass to examine. There's a whole fishbowl, and it's filled with more than just water and not just half full, and it's got plenty of fish in it. But I wanted to welcome everybody and say hello. We're living in a time when division makes the headlines, and we're here to focus on something far more powerful, the work that people are doing, bringing communities back together. When the tensions rise, whether it's over race or religion or politics or identity, what does it take to bridge the gap? Laws alone can't do it. Policy alone can't do it. But we as conflict resolution specialists have an ability to build trust and to take strategic leadership to a place where it just might help. And this is precisely where Carl D. Smallwood comes in. He leads the Divided Community Project at the Ohio State University Moritz College of Law, where he helps local leaders, not just there, all over the world, prepare for and respond to the tensions that fracture communities. From racial and political divides to conflicts over gender identity, immigration, his work is truly about turning crisis into collaboration. I typed into I actually visited the website, and there's some really great practical, thoughtful, useful resources. One is a guide entitled Speaking Out to Strengthen the Guardrails of Democracy. I think it's a must read for everybody here and all of your friends and all the people who you disagree with too. But it really speaks to how we can strengthen the democracy that we are living in wherever you live together, and how hope is greater than hate, facts more powerful than lies, and unity can triumph over division. Beyond this work at the Divided Community Project, Carl is a national leader in democracy and justice. He chairs the ABA's Advisory Commission to the Task Force on American Democracy and is a past president of both the Columbus Bar Association and the National Conference of Bar Presidents, where in January of this year, he was honored with the NCBP LexisNexis Rule of Law Award for his commitment to justice. He is a retired private practice lawyer with over 4 decades of work with actual clients there, and he was consistently rated among Ohio's top lawyers. And now, again, he is a professor at Moritz Law and a distinguished practitioner in residence. So today we're going to be diving into a fishbowl simulation. As I mentioned, there's some pretty big fish in this fishbowl that deserve their own introductions too, but I will leave that. But let's now turn to Carl Smallwood, who will take us to Farmington and let us step into the shoes of local leaders navigating real-world community conflict. This exercise is going to help us see how we respond when competing interests collide and what conflict resolutions can work and how we can employ them. Carl, please take it away. I will leave it to you. We've got a really tight schedule with lots of kind of technical bells and whistles. So Carl, I will leave it to you to present your fishbowl and take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki, for that kind introduction, and Maria, and the invitation to join you today. And you've told them quite a bit about me in glowing terms. Thank you. I brought some friends and colleagues with me who I hope will be able to really invigorate this conversation we're about to have. As Nikki said, we help communities with division, but we write guidance for leaders, for dispute resolution practitioners, and others. Like the publications you see on the screen on the right-hand side, we train leaders and host academies, such as the one that Maria and I participated in this past summer. And upon request and at no charge to the communities, we offer real-time conciliation intervention services to assist leadership in communities and on college and university campuses during conflict. The past 2 years, of course, like you, we focused on some of the conflicts that have arisen from the October 7 Hamas attacks on Israel and the tension that was caused in the Jewish and Arab Muslim communities. We worked with our colleagues and peacemakers to identify some promising ideas for college and university leaders to broaden and deepen their support of students and to reinforce their ability to address those concerns. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be hosting office hours on Zoom to help some campus leaders think about and plan for potential unrest as this semester comes to an end. I've got
Carl,
this opening.
can I just jump in and make you adjust your camera a little bit, because we only see half of your face and everybody wants to be able to see. There we go. We want to get the full bow tie. Perfect.
Wow.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Again, we were having some technical problems with my camera this morning. I'm not sure why. I hope. Am I still sharing a screen?
Yes.
No, you also
Yeah.
need to. Yeah.
Yes.
No. Yes.
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 distribute.
Okay. The
Yep.
QR code on the bottom of the screen is something you can scan with your phone, and it will get you into surveys that we're going to do during the presentation. Or there's a code at the top. If you go to menti.com and enter that numerical code, it will give you a chance to vote. And so in order to give that a try, why don't I let you tell me what sort of a role you currently hold? Your choices are community leader, community member, dispute resolution faculty, campus leader, or dispute resolution practitioner. And I can see some of these are coming in. So I just wanted to make sure that you were able to access it and that it works and that some of you can see it, because that's what we're going to be using in part as we continue this conversation this morning. So with that, obviously, I will encourage you to use the chat as well, as much as you like. We'll be monitoring the chat. We'll be watching this a little bit, and we're going to create some opportunities perhaps for you to jump in with your voices and communicate with us as well. Today, we're going to take you inside a challenging community conflict. We're going to discuss what the leaders are doing and unpack some of the lessons for leaders and for dispute resolution designers and mediators. Some of the facts that we are going to discuss today may be disturbing, and obviously the views expressed by those participating in this fishbowl are their own views, not the views of the institution. Our conflict today is going to be set in Farmington. Farmington is a college town, the home of Capital City College, which is nestled in the Capital City metropolitan area. It's early September. Last week, students from the college and from the Movement for Black Lives Aligned demonstrated at the farmers market and drew attention to a farmer who publicly supports white supremacy. Today, Farmington leaders were prepared to host the farmers market and adjacent protests. 3 individuals showed up armed with automatic rifles right as that market opened, and they appeared to be protecting the white supremacists. The Farmington police shut the market down in consultation with the mayor, but no one is really happy at this point. The mayor has asked leaders to come together and to give her advice, and the question then becomes, what should be the immediate next steps? Let me introduce you to the folks who are going to be in this fishbowl and who are going to live this conflict with you. They are, first, as our mayor, Nancy Rogers. She was a former dean of the College of Law at The Ohio State University. She was an attorney general of the state of Ohio and is one of the leading dispute systems design scholars in the country. Our police chief will be played by Chet Epperson, a 34-year law enforcement veteran and former chief in Rockford, Illinois. The community engagement director will be Andrew Thomas, former community relations and engagement director for the city of Sanford, Florida, and a former executive director for the Center on Dispute Settlement in Rochester, New York. Our city attorney is Ben Wilson, who is a fellow at the Divided Community Project here at the Moritz College of Law, where he teaches mediation. The Farmington Farmers Market manager is Thomas Battles, with nearly 4 decades of experience as the go-to mediator and conciliator for the U.S. Department of Justice on racial and ethnic conflict. He's a former regional director of the Community Relations Service, and he heads our Bridge Initiative at the Divided Community Project. The Capital City College Dean is Katrina Lee. In real life, she's a law professor and director of the program on dispute resolution at the #1 ranked program at the Moritz College of Law. Our suburban liaison is Beverly Callender Anderson, former director of Community and Family Resources Department in the mayor's office in Bloomington, Indiana. Now, I think we have highlighted some of these people, and we're going to bring them all on screen for you. The tasks for the mayor are fairly straightforward. She has to determine what the key messages are going to be going forward, deal with information or misinformation, which you were discussing just a minute ago, and if time permits, make some other decisions. So against that background, Madam Mayor, I'm going to turn the stage over to you and your cabinet. And if you could unmute yourselves, players, that'll make it easier for you to participate.
Thank you, everyone, for coming together in such an urgent situation. I know you're all busy, and I couldn't have a better team to address this urgent situations. What I think that we should do first is, because all of us know each other except Beverly, to welcome her and thank her for joining us. Beverly, we understand that with the developments today that we will be we will be drawing in and have attention from the community as a whole. No one knows the thinking of that larger community, including the main city, but also the other suburbs better than you. And we would usually take time to introduce ourselves, Beverly, to you. As we all know each other, what I've asked is that people put their titles up for you this morning, Beverly, so that you know the role we're playing, and that we begin because time is short. I want to find out first. I'll ask you first if anyone has any news since the closing of the market, and particularly if you know of any false rumors that are circulating. But if not, we'll begin, and I just want you to be thinking about this with your input. And I'm going to have to ask you not to give much background for it, because we need to communicate with the community with the urgency that they are feeling right now. So if you can just give me your suggestions for what ought to be in this first message. And I know we won't have time to make decisions before we put that message out. So any sorts of values you think we should mention based on what you know of the community that will be a part of our decision making going forward. And also, I want you to think about, as this develops today, for our next meeting, right after we get out our communication, who we need to talk with, who isn't here among us, who needs to be a part of this decision about next steps. So with that, I'm going to start around. I'm going to first ask if anyone has any new information, any indications that false rumors are going, any indications that national groups are involved, or any extremist groups.
Madam Mayor, I need to speak if I can. I've received over 100 text messages from the vendors. As you know, the city manages that, and it has great implications. This is Saturday, and they make their money today, and this has big economic implications for the vendors and the city. And the market has shut down for the day, and I've got over 100 text messages from the vendors, and they're very concerned about this. The lawyer says that we cannot kick this white supremacist out, and we don't know what's going to happen at this point. And the demonstrators are there, and so we have great concerns now at this point. And they want to know, are they going to get paid? The vendors want to know, the city going to cover the cost of shutting down for the day? So that has implications there for the city as well. This has significant economic implications. Plus, truckers are coming in to resupply and up the vendors. So that has another implication for truckers and vendors bringing in supplies for today.
All right, Thomas, thank you. I hope that while we're talking, you might let them know that we'll have a communication out soon, but we will next meet about decisions, understanding the urgency that they are facing.
Yes.
Anything further, and before we begin thinking about the contents of the communication that we're getting out? Right, let me just start.
Mayor,
yes, please.
if you may, I would just add it for additional information. As we're going to move into talking about rumor controls and misinformation, I'm not sure where it stands, but there's a high probability that it will occur. There's discussions going on with regards to protesting at the upcoming city council meeting. And that is, there's an undercurrent within the community that's proposing that should be an action that's taken, that they should come and protest at the city council meeting. The intent there is to disrupt the city council meeting. So I will share that with you for what it's worth at this point. and just suggest that we monitor, and I'll continue to stay on top of it.
Boy, thank you, Andrew. That adds some urgency, doesn't it? To getting back as quickly as we can to preparing ahead. I suspect, Chief, that you're going to tell me there's more urgency. You're seeing more urgency and a possibility of some greater crowds later.
We are, and so we'll have enough law enforcement officials there for security purposes, allowing people to exercise what they want to say at City Council. There'll be a decorum inside the council, as there are at all other City Council meetings. People have to be orderly. We can certainly give them the microphone if you want the council yourself, and give more people time to speak. We have to hear their voices. If people are heard, will be less disruption, but we will have security outside and inside to ensure people have safe passage to the City Council to air their frustrations. And at the same time, we will not allow any provocateurs or any disruptions on the outside.
Madam Mayor, I don't want to take over your meeting, but as you know, we manage this event, this market. With the information from the chief and what the community engagement directors, I say, once this protest is over, reopen the marketplace and let the vendors make the day. If the place closes, if the protest is over at 10 o'clock, the chief give them their opportunity to demonstrate. The demonstration is over. There were protesters, the counter protesters, they were armed, they could escort them out, reopen the marketplace. We cannot afford to pay and get a lawsuit. This is a liability for the city. Reopen the marketplace maybe by noon, and they can stay until 5 o'clock. This is a major issue. This is a liability for the city. The attorney has already said, I met with the attorney. The attorney said we cannot, this vendor has been this for 5 years. They have been there for 5 years. We approved this application, just like all the other applications. We cannot kick this vendor out. I say reopen the marketplace sometime today, even if it's late in the afternoon, let the marketplace open. The community needs to see the marketplace open. They may not go to this vendor, but reopen the marketplace. If the chief says, if it's a safety issue, then we rethink it. But you need the advice of the chief. I say reopen the marketplace.
Mayor, if I might, as you know, I'm here representing the mayor of the capital city, and we really see this as a issue much larger than just Farmington. And I understand what Mr. Battle says about the vendors losing money, but it's really important that this entire area is feeling safe. And as you know, we are in a state where open carry is permitted. And so opening the market, to say that the protest is going to be over, and I don't know what over means, because protests just go on. And so unless people are arrested and taken away, I'm not sure the protest will be over. And this is a place where people come from all of the suburban areas to visit the farmers market, not only for the vendors and the vegetables, but for information and for fellowship and for people coming out, just to see community members. And safety is of the utmost important. And it's not just it's not just saying that us telling people that it is safe. People have to feel safe. And if you're bringing your children to a market and people don't feel safe and don't feel like anything has been done except the market closed and the market open, that may not give that perception of safety. But, there are so many resources that we have at Capital City that we are willing to, especially in the training area, our your farmers market staff, some of your other city staff. I mean, we've got different types of trainings, and I understand that you have to follow what your attorneys say, but perhaps it would help with that perception of safety if people knew that staff were trained in how to deal with not only the vendor, but also protesters, because there are going to be protesters on both sides. And so we do have that ability to offer up different resources and training for you if that is something that you want. We've offered it in the past, and no one has taken us up on it because this didn't just happen this week. It's been a long time in coming, and so still want to make that offer on behalf of our mayor.
Beverly, we deeply appreciate that. This has grown beyond anything that I would say our group has handled in the past. And as you know, I've been mayor. This is my second term toward the end. So we are concerned about safety. Of course, we're concerned about a community that has a sense of one purpose and is now split. Let me suggest this. Although the opening is an urgent decision, even more urgent is that we reach the community and that they know we're working on this. And so let's get our communication out first. And in it, I will certainly assure people that we are still remaining convened, remaining deliberating on a course that will keep them safe and understand.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yes, and so let me hear from you very briefly, and don't hesitate to interrupt. We don't want to go the wrong directions, and I trust that you will interrupt when it's important to do so. So let's go around. Start with you, Katrina, and just what should be in the message? What do we need to correct right away? What messengers should we look for to join us quickly in the message? And any suggestions for our communications people about how to reach particular audiences?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mayor. I'll share just a little bit about what we are hearing from students. We've been in very close communication with the students who have been involved in demonstrations at the market. We are hearing from students that they are feeling very unsafe and not welcome in the city that surrounds the college. And we are hearing from student leaders, and it would be good to involve and acknowledge student leaders at the campus and acknowledge the feeling of not being welcome, not feeling welcome in the surrounding community. There is a sense on campus by some students that there's a sense of betrayal that the students have contributed. They contribute financially to the life of the city, to the market, and yet when they go out, they're not feeling protected. And so we try very hard here in our office to reach out to students who are expressing these feelings and try to get them the support that they can, but some acknowledgement, and then involving the student leaders. We have affinity groups that we can identify for the mayor. To get
in the short term, who will they trust, Katrina? Who will be the messenger they will trust? Is it your president? Is it the student leaders? Is it both? Is it you?
It would be student leaders, and I think there are individuals in my office as well. I would not at this point recommend a message. Things have been tense on campus. Our college president has just announced plans to discontinue the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging. So a messaging from the president's office may not be the most trusted message.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll briefly connect on what you feel that those messengers could convey of the message that we'll put out from the city of Farmington. Let me jump, Chet, to you. I know that sometimes the communications come out from the police. I'd like them to be joint from this point forward, if that is all right with you. Do you see any contraindications to that?
Absolutely not. Your office is the governance of the city, and we'll coordinate with your office and any other partners who will have a strong, solid message. That's not an issue.
What needs to be in it?
Well, so I'm hearing the unsafe. I'm hearing the market wants to go back open. There's challenging elements of that. And let me just say it needs a further discussion. There's open carry, meaning people can carry a weapon. So if a farmer who doesn't feel safe, is he or she going to come in the market with a weapon? Is somebody going to get upset and see somebody with a weapon in the market who's not a threat, but because they feel safe? So I believe there needs to be further discussion from the city and any of the leaders. Do we want to possibly say the market is off limits, meaning anyone who comes in the market cannot be armed? That would include even a safe person, a person who is not going to pose a threat, but they're carrying a weapon because they feel unsafe. I think that discussion should take place, because hypothetically, if it's off limits, meaning you cannot carry a weapon into the market, I think people would feel more safe. We could position law enforcement officers at the entrance to the market to ensure that there's compliance with that, and then the market can open back up, and we can ensure there's safe passage, that people can come in and shop, etc.
Madam Mayor, let me jump in if I may. I think we have now set the stage for our first conversation. And in our first conversation, I hope to ask our audience whether Mayor Rogers has the information that she needs at this point to decide what to do and say to the community. If not, what should she do or ask of these folks in the room or elsewhere? So you can participate in responding to that in a couple of ways. One is to put your answer in the Menti, which is an anonymous way of doing so. You may throw an answer in the chat, or you can raise your hand and talk to us. And there are a couple hundred of you, so it may take a second for Nikki and I to figure out who might be asking a question or making a comment. But if you could keep your comments relatively concise, I'm sure we can get a couple of you in. So let me see. I'm not yet seeing any hands, Nikki.
I don't see any hands. Mike
Okay.
has
Well,
put that it's a helpful conversation, but no clear path forward in the chat.
okay. Yes. Good. Does the mayor have full understanding of her latitude here? I'm not getting the sense that she does. Okay. Well, involve protesters in the conversation. Very good. So there are some groups. There may be some members of the community or of the protest with whom we don't yet have communication. Involve students in the communication. Yes. Again, you've got a dean here who perhaps is a voice of some of the students, but certainly not all. And it's not a direct way of getting input from the students, who, of course, don't have a monolithic view about any of these subjects. So good. Well, I'll let that continue to populate. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. It'll make it a little bit easier for me to see the players. And let me raise a question then for the mayor and the folks in the room. Same question I've asked the audience, which is, what information do you need, and what is missing right now that you need to find out and get your hands around so that you can communicate with the community?
Yeah, so I think that I think that I have decided that despite the liability, being a lawyer, despite the possibility of liability for today, that we are going to get some information out before we make a decision, that the decision itself involves people's lives, it involves risks that are terribly important going forward, and that the community needs to first hear from us. And I loved some of the questions. I think that the content is important, but equally important in this information fog that we're operating in, especially right now, given what's happening in the national level. People are screening things out, and whose voice and who will be influential and what means to get it out will be really crucial for this first message. I'm also cognizant of the discussion earlier about people operating on different sets of facts. And once a narrative takes hold, it's very difficult to dislodge it. So I want these early communications to be clear about those things. I certainly want to hear much more from this group about what values people need to know are going to be part of the decision-making and whose voices will be heard. Because I think that will give us the leeway for a bit of time and grace to make the best and safest and decision for the community. So those are some things on my mind right now, although I will say that the biggest thing I have on my mind right now is I sure wish we'd prepared more for this situation. Because with this demonstration coming up, you can't delay that like you can the decision on whether to open. And we are not ready as a community for that. We have not prepared.
Mayor, to your point about whose voices are going to be heard, as you know, in Capital City, our mayor has signed an executive order declaring racism a public health emergency, and we believe that, and we state our values very clearly through that. One of the things, though, that I would counsel you is to think about the freedom of speech of the white supremacists, and do they have the right to their voice as well? And secondly, are they practicing any white supremacist activities? Are they doing any white supremacist activities at the market? Are they actually endangering people at the market, or are they selling vegetables at the market? And if they are selling vegetables and they are white supremacists in their lives outside the market, how does that impact what happens at the city-sponsored market? Because they do have a right to their beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Really important point. And I think as we put out the communication, that is something we should catch, is that we understand that there are the interests of the larger metropolitan community, that we want all people to feel safe and included. But we do also recognize that the First Amendment is another pillar of our democracy, and that there sometimes are tensions that we deal with as a people. So we will try to make that clear. And fortunately, that decision is going to be made, but not now. But I would say within a half hour or so, we're going to have to face that decision making. And we're lucky to have Ben with us to help us look at the parameters, because I do think we want, as strongly as we can within the parameters of the law, to emphasize that value of diversity is central to our community.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you.
Mayor,
To me here.
may I add before, excuse me, Attorney Wilson, before you weigh in, I just want to caution us as we're thinking about the reopening of the market, whatever press release goes out, understanding that prior to this whole situation with the farmers market, there was already tension within the community. And that is longstanding. There's the issue of trust within the city government. Yes, there's strong feelings that this is not new with the vendor that is that's part of the white supremacist movement. They've been in the farmers market for a while. The city vetted them, and the strong feelings in the community is that you had some knowledge of what was going on but you sanctioned that and allowed that to go on until we brought it to your attention. If we had not brought it to your attention, I think it would have continued to go on. And what I'm saying to you now is what I'm hearing in the community. So as we move forward, understand that there's some underpinnings here that is also driving it. You've got the tip of the iceberg here with regards to this particular vendor. That ties into a myriad of other issues that have been going on within the community. Not only with City Hall, it's with the police department and understanding what's going on there. We've got the college involved. There's issues, as you know, that's been going on with the college. So if we handle this as an isolated situation that deals just with the farmer market and do not pay attention to the other issues there, I think we're on a slippery slope. I just want to pass that along to you, Ben, before you respond.
Yeah. But before Ben jumps in, if I could just underscore two things, I think, 2 points that Andrew made. One is that the mayor is hopeful to check in with different parts of the community. She has some parts of the community in the room, but we've already pointed out a number that are not there, that are not represented, that are voices that are not being heard by the mayor at this moment. And she needs connection to those voices in order to respond authentically and directly to the needs of those people. So that's sort of the first point. And that includes, the faith community, advocacy groups in the community, and others who represent interests and neighborhoods and parts of the community that need to be heard at this moment. And the second point that Andrew made that should resonate with all of us as dispute resolution practitioners is that the positions that people are taking, the people showing up with guns at the farmers market and the counter protesters who are taking positions, but the underlying interests, what's driving this, the needs that are driving these community members to voice their concerns and to voice their demands for freedom or for the rights of certain people to speak or for the ability to be safe and not threatened by others. Those needs are what ultimately need to be addressed in this community. And as Andrew is saying, those are long-standing quite often. They often are not something that are immediately apparent. But when you as community members and dispute resolution practitioners become engaged, you immediately begin to look for those in order to address those with the parts of the community that are most concerned. So sorry,
Let me respond.
Yeah.
Let me pick up where you left on the call. In this particular scenario, I think for the mayor, I think her concern and your concern is getting a message out to the community. This is a major business for this community, and the mayor needs to say something to the community, and she has her team to give her the advice. And then, yes, there are people in this scenario, because the potential for safety is paramount. She has to decide on what to do in an open carry situation. Safety has to be number one for everyone. That's important. And so she has to decide, do I just err on the side of caution with safety, or I deal with the economic situation? I think she has to err on the side of safety. And so she has to get a message out to say something about safety. And then, yes, she has to recognize that this has economic implications there. So as the manager of the market, obviously, I have to be concerned about the vendors and their concern. So I'm really concerned. I've got to give her the input about what their thinking is and what their voice is saying. So I'm going to do that. So I think her message has to talk about safety and what those weapons and then what the implications of those weapons and what that means from the chief standpoint and what he's getting from the intelligence standpoint about that, and where that may take the city as this plays out even further, and as we go with this situation. should they reopen, should they not reopen, and where we go with this situation, and what voices are not at the table as she crafts the message.
And one of the things that I have heard the mayor say is that, you know, you're not prepared for the protest. And I know that market being closed really affects the vendors. It also affects the community and their sense of safety. But I wonder if there is a possibility to close the market for multiple days or weeks. I mean, I think they come every weekend for multiple weeks so that you can prepare. And so if the market is closed, you can gather your messengers. I mean, and hopefully our mayor from Capital City will be able to stand with you as well as some other suburban mayors and the university, you know, and just gather your people and come up with a plan. I don't know if there's money in the city budget to compensate vendors for their losses during that time, but that would be one thing to think about. And if people knew market was going to be closed for 2 weeks while this plan was being made, or 3 weeks or whatever it takes, that might be helpful.
Let me share one other screen. I have a couple of points that we try to focus upon when we think about addressing conflict in real time. And I've put them I think I'm sharing a screen now. If somebody can give me a thumbs up to make sure I'm on the right part of my computer. There we go. Okay. And we've covered a number of these points, you know, and I think one of them was raised in the chat. What about an emergency operations center to coordinate the law enforcement assets and capacities? We've talked about the idea of checking in with each part of the community. And the mayor began actually with the idea of communicating with residents quickly because every moment that they spend in this meeting talking to each other is a moment that the narratives that are taking hold out on the streets are not being corrected if they're wrong, redirected, you know, in a positive and constructive way. So you need to move with speed, but you also need to deliver the content that your audiences need in the way they receive that message. And so we've talked about a number of these issues. Let me ask Nancy if there's anything else sort of in this section before we move on to the next part of our simulation that we should touch upon, or anybody else, I guess, not just Nancy.
Yeah, let me just say that that it's frightening to be in this situation when you have not anticipated it or anything like it. And that one of the roles that all of us as mediators can play is in helping our communities right now prepare for this. We've seen the message from the president that he will be coming down hard on demonstrators. He's warned universities that he may cut off their funds if they don't do certain harsh things, much harsher than they have been doing. So to prepare so that there is the input in us, that you can have a quick meeting and that the people at that meeting will be in touch with all the crucial communities and give you the message that you can frame accurately. You know, what a mistake it would have been to not have had Andrew Thomas's input, that we need to frame this in terms of this is an ongoing, very large issue facing our community. If we were to just say it's just this instance and didn't have Beverly's counsel, you know, in a typical response in many communities, those two people would not have been present when that initial communication was framed. Or in other instances, the mayors would have made the decision before they did the communication, and the false narratives would have taken place, and the community would have decided that they are so not in touch that they haven't put anything out. They don't care about their community. So the preparation, I guess I would emphasize, is really key. We know our communities are going to be facing issues like this, and we can help them to urge them to prepare.
Well, what we're going to do now is go back into the fishbowl with our our mayor and her hastily put together cabinet and guests. And we're going to permit the simulation to continue. And when we get done, we'll think about planning. So as things happen in the real world, let me share a screen. Protesters are now gathering. They are organized, and 50 of them appear to be gathered at the moment, but social media suggests that hundreds more are on their way at this point to support the demonstration. So things are escalating in Farmington very quickly. And with that background, let me turn to the mayor and permit her to continue her meeting.
Well, thank you. All of you, the communication is now out, and we are facing a crisis. Protesters are gathering. Chief, to what degree is this something, is this going to be something that you will need help from other law enforcement agencies with respect?
So, Mayor, we've been anticipating this to occur at City Hall. We've coordinated with various law enforcement agencies in the county and the city. We're doing the NIMS approach, a national incident management system, where we'll have various law enforcement officers there. Primarily, our city will be at City Hall. The other officers and from the organizations will be outside for security. We've already met with the various groups of the protesters in your office a couple days ago, and they were provided the rules of engagement that have been established by the attorney, Wilson, for the city, things they can do, things they cannot do. We want everyone to have a voice, and so we will have an orderly event at City Hall. There'll be particular lines for those that want to make approach to go to the City Hall. Of course, there's no weapons allowed at City Hall, and you cannot carry a gun or a knife at City Hall. So we anticipate a good event, and we've written something up for your office if you want to distribute that publicly in terms of that the police are there for safety and security and want to make people feel safe that they're able to come to City Hall and voice their concerns.
Is there any concern that that with some national publicity, we're going to need more than the city police helping, more than the capital city police agencies?
Well, I have 5 law enforcement agencies. I think our numbers, we wouldn't want to go public with this, but we have over 150 law enforcement officers. We have an operations center that we set up because we have multiple law enforcement agencies. We're all talking on the same channel in terms of communication. And we've got a plan, and it's down on paper, and we don't believe that we're going to have to call any other resources, and we believe we have it under control.
And what about de-escalation teams? Anyone in the group have teams available now that could be there almost immediately and work the crowd, support the crowd?
Yeah, so that was one of our main emphasis, is that obviously everybody's, all the officers have been trained in use of force, but first and foremost, we want to have good, I call it customer service. We want to restrain, and there's going to be a lot of yelling, shouting. There could be name calling. There could be overtones. The officers have been told about this, not to react to that. Obviously, if there's anyone throwing items or bottles, we can't tolerate that as a city. But in terms of just being verbally abusive, our officers have been told that just put up with it, and that's going to be our best form of de-escalation, because if we didn't say that, they didn't agree to it, it would just escalate things and we'd have a fight on our hands. So our officers are going to have a top priority of de-escalation, being able to take that verbal abuse.
But Chief, I don't know if you've spoken to the Capital City Chief. As you know, we have incorporated social workers and after-hours ambassadors with our police force who are trained in de-escalation. They are not badged officers, but they work with police and can be there with the crowd to help talk folks down and de-escalate some of the situations before it gets to that point. And so I think that our police force would be happy to, I don't know about happy, but they would work with you to use some of those resources as well.
Perfect. We
And I'm
can-
going to, in a minute, go to you, Katrina, to figure out if you have some students or faculty trained. But I want quickly to call in Thomas Battles from the Community Relations Service of the U.S. Department of Justice. I think we need to know what they're hearing nationally, and we need your input, Thomas. You've been listening.
Yes.
And,
Yes, Ms. Mayor.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
What
you.
are we missing? What are we missing?
Thank you. Well, we also have some resources that we could bring in our team to help with training the team that volunteers. We can get some citizens together to help do some self-marshaling, to help manage your own protests, especially if you can get some of the students that will be understand that they don't represent anybody, they're volunteers. They're not police officers, and we can get them to volunteer their services. The chief can give us a liaison to ensure that they understand that they're not police officers. They won't have any badge, they don't have any arrest authority. They're volunteers to help manage the march, manage the people, ensure that they're not getting into any fights with, if they're in the counter protests. They're just managing the protests, help make sure that they're there when they say they're gonna be there, they're staying where they say they're gonna be, and they're being able to exercise their First Amendment. So we have this training program where we do self-marshaling. They're there to ensure that they're managing the march itself so that the people will be able to exercise their First Amendment rights. And this is what the Justice Department's Community Relations Service, which is a federal agency that was created under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that assists communities. They're not a law enforcement agency, and they're there to help communities such as yours in situations like this. We heard about this situation. We've been monitoring, we put in some calls. We don't represent anybody. We represent the issue that's generating concern. And so we're offering our services to you at no cost to the community. And your attorney would like that. And so, we're not here to sue the chief. We're not here to file any civil rights violations against the police department. We're not here to keep an eye on the police department for any excessive force violations or anything like that. We're here to offer our services to the community. And we can do the short term as well as long term, because we also have programs that we can offer in the schools. And we're also keeping an eye on the surrounding communities if there are any concerns about counter protesters or protesters in the surrounding communities that this may spill over to, or solidarity protests in any other communities around the surrounding areas or even around the country related to this situation.
Right. It seems from the news that we are in the midst of this situation. We're grateful, Thomas, and hope you will call and do things right away. I have a couple of other urgent things we need to make sure someone is doing. Someone needs to be telling the governor what's going on here, that we have it in hand and how we have it in hand. Andrew, can you take care of that? Being in touch with the governor's office, as well as the representatives for any part of this community, U.S. representatives, and also, Thomas, are you able to let your superiors in the Justice Department know that you are working with it and that things are under control?
Absolutely, we will do it through my director and the regional director, and they will let the uplinks know that we're
now I think
if I may quickly follow up on what Mr. Battles has said, that we have been, he said he's been in touch. Yes, we have been in communication with his office. We do have individuals on the grounds. We know that the protesters are out there. We have some, we've been working with our faith leaders. So they do have some, we've had communications in terms of preparing them as much as we could. We are also anticipating, as Mr. Battle has said, that we should have, if not already, kind of boots on the grounds from his office, so that there are some people on the streets right now. And I've been in communication with some of those community leaders in terms of where they are, their groups. Now, that's acknowledging those individuals that they feel they have communications with. Now, understanding There are also groups out there that we don't have contact with. And there, as the crowd grows, they're coming in with their own agendas. The ones that we're in communication with that have some type of leadership, we're fairly comfortable and understanding what their intent. Those that we're not having communications with, and that's the intelligence that we're going to rely on. Chet from the police department and Tom from community services to have that type of intelligence to support what we have. Those individuals that are community-based, that's been part of the community organizing, had contact with. The others that are coming in, and we do have a certain number of individuals that have come in to the community. But whatever their intent and their reasons are, we need to know who they are. And we'll rely upon, as I said, law enforcement and community relations to assist us in that area.
Mayor, might I suggest that the use of social media, I know that the protesters are using social media to get their message out. And as Andrew said, that there are people that they don't have communication with, excuse me, contact with. And so maybe putting some type of message on social media and offering an opportunity, a controlled opportunity for some of those people who are protesting on either side, both sides, to speak to your leadership and to talk about what their grievances are and try to pull some of the answers from that. And if that was set up, you'd have some place for them to go. It's when they get there and they're just protesting and there's no call to action, there's nothing for them to do. So you may want to think about putting together some kind of meeting within the next week so that folk can come in and talk.
Ms. Mayor,
I want to get that
Mayor.
out. And can you help with that?
I'd be happy to help with that and
And
to get it to
and
surrounding communities as well.
Katrina, you all have the bullet points that we're not seeing this as isolated. We're seeing this as a part of something deeper that we want to deal with over time. We have their values in mind as we will be making those decisions. We want to keep them safe. I wonder if you can use the university's social media person and the intra social media that the university has to reach the students during the demonstration. But I wonder if we have anybody on the ground who is able to be in the midst of the demonstrators and let us know the mood, so that we know how to communicate in response to that.
Are there plainclothes officers?
So we have, this is Chet Epperson. We have some plainclothes officers in the area. We're also going to embed this community relations service. They're plainclothes, they're non-police officers. They're going to be also probably our main touches in terms of feeding us information. Unless there's something really, really bad, the less boots on the ground from uniform officers. It's not good for us to have a high presence of, we'll have the police present if there's an immediate issue, but having the plainclothes officers and CRS blocking traffic so they can get on the street is fine, but not an overabundance of the police, because it's going to really escalate the issue.
I think we need to very soon transition into an emergency operations center. And what I would like is everyone who is here to be part of it on this particular instance. Can you accommodate that, Chief?
Yes, we already have that in the works with all the law enforcement agencies. We're more than happy to bring our mobile command van either outside of City Hall or at least a few blocks away from the center of City Hall. If it's not, probably City Hall is not a good idea, but a few blocks away from where the demonstration is taking place, we have that already set up in the works.
Mayor, as you know, I'm a graduate of the college, so I do have friends that are out there, and they are really upset. And of course, Black Lives Matter is out there, and they're upset that they're not in the room, and they want to get in the room, and they want their voices to be heard. I assured them that you are not disrespecting them by not having a voice in the room. As you know how Black Lives Matter is, they want to be heard. They want to be heard. And so I assured them that whatever they want to say, that you respect their voices. As a manager of the market, I work with the chief and preparing planning the first protest in terms of working with them as they did their first protest related to this issue. This person has been in the market for over 5 years. It's not the first time that they've. This is a little different one taking on this particular protest because of the armed individuals that came. This is taking on a different light. Black Lives Matter and the students from the college this is generating a lot of attention. And the students are a little upset because they're not in the room. And being a graduate of the college, I understand their frustration. And so, and I have friends at the college that are speaking to me, and they're jumping on me that, why are you not getting me in this room? I want to be in this room. I want to be in the room. So I think we need to figure out a way how to hear their voices at this point. So we need to craft something and get a voice in this room to hear what students have to say.
Thank you all. Madam Mayor, let me break in again. Thank you very much for moving this conversation forward with us. We try to make this as realistic as possible. Things happen in the real world while leaders are planning to address the last thing they were aware of. And so we try to make this as dynamic as possible in creating a simulation for leadership teams to work through the kinds of issues that are presented here. And the chat has been very active, asking, why it is that statements haven't been made. It seems as though that people outside the room aren't hearing as much as they need to. Concerns about safety, concerns about people's rights to express their First and Second Amendment rights if they are not otherwise causing a danger to the community. And so the planning goes. So let's take just a minute though to focus on what you've been addressing and the concerns for safety, and then we'll go ahead and think about planning in the future. So let's talk first about how you are addressing safety at this moment as this escalates. Again, does the mayor have what she needs at this moment? Is the mayor in a position to move forward?
Well, the mayor has decided.
Go ahead.
The chief has decided to put together a command center, joint information center, and so everybody that needs to be in one central location will be in a central location.
Who's in the command center?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Who's in the command center? This emergency operations center.
All in emergency operations center. The chief, everybody that's decision makers will be in that room. And I think that's key.
Multiple law enforcement agencies that may be responding to the community concern. That is to say, university police, city police, highway patrol, emergency services. Anybody else?
Yes. And if there are key leaders that need to be there, you can't get everybody in there. But if there are key leaders that the mayor thinks need to be in, the mayor will be in that room. Capital City, obviously everybody on the screen, and the key leaders that need to be in that room that the community trusts that needs to be in that room will be in the room. It depends on the size of the space.
Yeah.
That they will be in the room so that they'll have a voice when the mayor needs to call on them for a statement.
Okay. Then let's do this, because I do want to get to planning. We've got more than 100 people on this call who are process-oriented dispute resolution practitioners and scholars and planners. And they all have agency in their communities, whether they've been called upon by the campus or community leadership to engage the way Andrew Thomas engaged in Sanford, Florida, or whether they are, on the outside, essentially looking in. As we think about planning, if let's say this market was going to be opening in 60 days, It didn't, we didn't have the issue today, but in 60 days, we've gotten news that there's going to be protest at the market. What can we do to prepare our community for that? And what can you do to help prepare our community for that possibility? So I've opened the next Mentee slide. And I guess I can share a screen. Those of you who are following on your phone should be able to see it. This is what it looks like. And you can begin to enter your responses for what you think in your current role you might do to help prepare your community if you had 60 days to do so. Who might you reach out to? Who might you approach about creating something? Let us know what you're thinking.
Carl, we have a hand up from the audience. Sam,
I'm sorry. I've got so many screens, it's hard for me to see.
That's
Please.
okay.
Where?
Yes, thank you so much. It's a privilege to listen on and to see the excellent efforts that are being made by some very caring and important people. Mike, here's my question in a sort of a positive direction to go in. Have your citizen volunteers, student leaders, community leaders, and police officers been trained in active bystandership? And the reason for that is we're including the police officers. There's active bystanderships training for police officers themselves. It's called the ABLE program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, police chief. But anyway, this is a way, and it'll take 60 days to educate the public in whatever realm they're in, protester organization, whoever it is, even the white supremacist folks. Be trained in active bystandership, because the idea is respect for everyone. If you're familiar with that training, and there's various trainings out there for that, and that's my comment.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Excellent suggestion. And there are any number of organizations and groups in your communities that are working on training to assist communities. So absolutely, thank you for lifting them up. Please, if there's anybody else who wants to jump in, love to hear from you. As I said, I can see a number of you are populating the Mentee poll. But I guess if nobody else wants to raise their hand at the moment, Melton?
Yes. Thank you so much. This looked so real and felt so real. So I appreciate the entire group who did this work. So my suggestion is, as I was observing, I have a very creative mind, and I was thinking that when it comes to crisis management in this kind of circumstances, it's almost impossible to use our brain, the creative side of our brain, to bring solutions. This is all about how to manage the crisis. So as you suggested, if we would have 60 days in advance to plan something, I would totally form groups of creative problem solving. Can we bring some stakeholders from different communities that through facilitated dialogues, there will be, even though they might have different polarized views, but uniting them in the idea of solving problem. For example, in this case, I was thinking about, could there be a community facilitated dialogue to bring them, where can we do protests if in the community, for example, if there is a music festival, there will be a dedicated space. I'm just throwing out ideas, thinking out loud with you, with the group. But could there be that all protesters, all stakeholders could come up with a place so the city can actually encourage protesters to come whenever there is an issue, to do protests in peaceful manners. The city will be prepared. The city will be an ally to protesters instead of trying to create safe spaces among the communities. So I'm just throwing out ideas here, but I'm thinking that there needs to be creative solution groups instead of, I think it's extremely important to do crisis management, but at the same time, we need to form groups that these creative dialogues can happen and all stakeholders can be part of these dialogues. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's such an important suggestion, and the skills that the people on this screen have is the skill to convene and then to facilitate that kind of a conversation. So thank you, Meltem, for that suggestion. And again, as you look at your own communities, there are opportunities for you, and we desperately need to equip some of the younger generations of future leaders with these skills, so that they can engage in this work, and reach audiences that people who look as old as I do don't reach. You know, yeah, although I teach, yes, theoretically I'm reaching a few students. So let me go back to our panel, and see if we can't make a few more points that relate to planning in advance. And again, we have a short checklist, if you will, that might be helpful in thinking about that subject. And again, all of these slides are going to be a part of the materials that Maria and Nikki will post, and be part of this. So you'll have this. We expect to have a newer publication coming out relating to addressing and planning in advance of community conflict, probably early summer. But so let me turn back to the panel, as I said, and see if we can't get a couple of comments about what you might think about in the planning process. Nancy, I see your head shaking. You want to go first?
Okay, yeah, we have said, but I hadn't really felt it till the midst of this stimulus. There is no way to do a good job except by luck, if you haven't prepared. Nor is there a way to get in the room at the time that the decision is being made in such an urgent situation in most instances. And so the moment to have an impact on what your leaders do, as very likely the issues like this will come up, is to be a part of doing the very kinds of things that we had two examples of, and to build a more resilient community, for the community to know what its common identity is, so that the leader can call upon that and remind them that they have a shared future and it's a bright one if they can solve their problems, to have the escalators ready, the de-escalators ready. We've seen the major difference that can play, that they would be out there, that, even as simple as handing out water to people, or making sure that they're being rational and not so susceptible to doing irrational things that might lead to violence. All those very simple things would be in place.
Add to that, prior preparation, ongoing relationships with the communities, knowing the history, the trauma that the community has gone through, and actively engaged in having those discussions. Because very often when these situations come up, the target is going to be one, law enforcement, because they're very visible, very active in the community. And if there's issues that's going to crop up between the community, the citizens, and local government, is going to be with police department, and that carries over into your city hall, your mayor, and your council members. And looking at that, what efforts are made to, one is, identify and work on. Don't have the solutions until you know the problems, but invite those discussions. Sometimes it's as simple as allowing those stories to be told. Because sometimes, that I have found out, people have their stories to tell. They have their traumatic experiences they've been through. And what they want out of it is an opportunity to tell you what has happened, that gives you the opportunity to address if you so choose. But at least you are aware. that begins to lay the foundation. Once you begin to bridge the foundation, as I heard, I'm thinking about, Chetty, may have been you that mentioned that, or no, it was someone else earlier, that you can have those conversations holding clearly different views, points of views on it and belief systems, but that should not preclude your conversations and the opportunity to say, although I don't agree, I understand. And getting to understanding begins to build the foundations for moving forward. If you don't have that, if you don't have that relationship, at the time of a crisis, it's not the time to try and form that, because trust is so low. At that point, no matter what you do, it's not going to be perceived with the intent that you would hope it would be delivered at. And that's when you get the snowball effect on it. And you start off with one set of issues and demands that didn't come out. Those issues and demands are going to grow, because everything that's closely related to it that could have happened over the past 100 years, chances are, if they're churned up, are going to be pulled back into it. And then that willingness to go through hearing, what are the underpinnings here? So where did this, we're here as an example with the farmers market. I'll say in Sanford, the tragic death of Trayvon Martin. That went so much more deeper, as I'm sure the farmers market went so much deeper. And if you try and deal with that on a surface level, it's going to implode on you. Yeah. And that's when patience. And I'd say I've heard some, elected officials will say, well, that didn't happen under my watch, but it happened in your town and in your city. And if it didn't happen on your watch, put you in a position to hear. Now you can collectively plan on how to move forward. But it can go into some of the things, as I'm sure Beverly will talk about, in terms of in Bloomington, because we dealt with a 100-year history that just continuously popped up, one issue after another. And
Well,
if you
if
recall,
there is,
Let me
go ahead. I'm sorry, Carl. Stop.
I was going to say, Andrew's let the cat out of the bag. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Farmington is actually,
back?
Farmington is based on a real life situation in Bloomington, Indiana, where a white supremacist came to a farmer's market. So as we'll talk about that in just a second, I'm going to reserve a few minutes for Beverly to share sort of the rest of the story with you that we then used as an exercise to explore these issues with you today. But let me say one other thing as a thought with respect to the planning process. And that is that, we've talked about the idea of convening or of beginning a planning process. And when you recruit people to participate in that planning process, or at least recognize that you probably have to recruit people to participate in that planning process. The idea of simply, posting something that says we're creating a commission or we're creating a task force or we're creating something and letting people self-nominate may not get you the participants that you most want, and it may not get you the leadership that you most need. And so the idea of both selecting participants for this planning process and selecting leadership is a really important point that we've seen play out in ways that help some communities be much more successful in achieving the aims of planning in advance of conflict or addressing the underlying concerns of the community, and other communities have much greater difficulty in doing so. So I promised that I would save a few minutes to let Beverly Callender Anderson talk to us about Bloomington, Indiana, where she resides, and which, as I said, was the inspiration for the Farmington simulation. So Beverly, if you would tell us what happened after the farmers market closed.
So thank you, Carl. And every time we talk about this, I have a little PTSD because this was my life for about 2 years. We had a vendor who had been a long-term vendor that basically made the news for some white supremacist activity outside of the market. In the market, there had never been an issue, but when that vendor made the news, that became very public, and so there were demands for this vendor to be removed from the market. The vendor had a contract. The contract had an ethics clause, but it really had to do with what was happening inside the market. And so that's when the protests started. We designated an area for protests so people couldn't walk through and just harass people. So we designated a protest area, and that worked for a while. And they were mostly protest against the vendor. And one week, the Proud Boys came down, and there's another group, and they were the ones that were armed. And Indiana is an open carry state. I had heard the chief say earlier, don't allow firearms in the market. Our market is on city hall property, and firearms are allowed in city hall because we can't stop it. The state said we can't stop it. So because it was on the city hall property, we couldn't say you can't have not only firearms, and there were knives and there were all kinds of things. So it just really became a big mess. One of the pieces that doesn't show up on this map is that at our city hall, we have a garage right across the street where there was the possibility of snipers being on the garage. So we literally closed the market for 2 weeks and just regrouped from a safety standpoint. We engaged market ambassadors to welcome people. We actually did plan meetings where we brought people together to hear their issues, because I think one of the things that's important, and one of the things I really resonate with what Andrew said, is that this didn't just start at farmers market. Farmers market made it boil over, and it triggered all the other things. And so if you have an issue in your farmers market, you have an issue in your HR department, you have an issue in, every place in City Hall. And so we probably had 4 or 5 facilitated meetings. And then we brought in the Bridge Project, and they worked with us and helped us interview key stakeholders in the community. We identified, those people that had influence, like our advocacy groups, NAACP, we have Bloomington Pride, and all of the groups that were affected, as well as the people on the other side. What we ultimately did, I think, which was really important, is we stated what our values as a city were. We want to be a welcoming and diverse community for everybody. We don't want anybody to feel bad. But we also understood our legal obligations and got sued anyway, but it's okay. But we understood our legal obligations and our obligations to free speech. So Black Lives Matter at some point began a people's market where they vetted. And let me say, our farmers market had over a 40-year history of being in that location. So it wasn't just a pop-up market. It is a community staple and tradition. And so because a lot of the vendors were feeling attacked as well, not attacked, but unsafe, our Black Lives Matter chapter here started what they called a people's market, and they split off, and it was basically for BIPOC folk. And that is still going. We still have our farmers market. It's a little bit smaller, but it's ramping back up. We hired new folks. We trained our staff. We trained our staff in not only de-escalation, but also, a lot of inclusion and diversity, humility, how to stand down. We also always have plainclothes police in market now. But it's back, and the numbers are coming back up. We lost numbers and then COVID hit, and so we lost numbers. But the numbers are starting to come back up, and the vendors are coming back. Some of the vendors that left are coming back. Some of the vendors just were in 2 different places. But some of they're coming back. And so it's getting back to being what it was. But this was, oh my God. Well, it was before COVID. So this has been a while. It's taken a while.
Beverly, I know we're reaching the top of the hour.
Oh,
so
sorry.
that's okay. I'm gonna have to ask you to
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Well, that's where we are. Sorry,
let
Carl.
me thank you. No, you've done a wonderful job of telling people this is all real, and that's why we do this. There were several task forces that came out of the work of the assessment that was made by the Divided Community Project Bridge Initiative that run. There's a case report that Nikki put in the chat for you, so you can actually read that as well. I just want to thank all of you for participating, for staying with us. We do this kind of training in part. We create these simulations for leadership teams around the country in cities and on college campuses, because frankly, nobody's interested in reading the materials until they realize there's a problem. Okay, so we try to create a sense of urgency for them, and the simulations are useful in doing that. Happy to collaborate with any of you going forward. Happy to be a resource for you. Happy to hear about what you're doing in your communities. Please share that with us. We use illustrations in our guides all the time and try to tell people the lessons that we have learned and the ideas that others have. So Nikki and Maria and the NYC dispute resolution practitioners, thank you so much for having us with the Divided Community Project. Thank you to my players who are here, my colleagues, and my two guests, Beverly Callender Anderson and Chief Epperson. And we will look forward to reconnecting with you in the future.
Thank you
And
so
there is one more, I
much.
guess there is one more thing in your Mentimeter, so please fill that out. If there's a takeaway, I'll leave that open for you. You can add that anytime, whatever there's a takeaway.
And
Thank
hopefully,
you.
yeah, we'll be posting the Mentimeter results and richness of all the engagement with the recording when we pop it up as a go along resource for anybody who joined late. But thank you so much to all of you, and I hope you saw in the comments how real this felt, and now we know why, because some of you were plucked from your real life experience. And just thank you, Carl, for convening everybody, and thank you to everybody for making it so riveting and so informative. Maria, do you have a final word to say?
Yeah, thank you. I want to add to everyone's gratitude here this morning. And probably the biggest takeaway for all of us is the importance of relationship building for all of us as conflict resolvers, in addition to all the players that we saw in this particular scenario. So yes, go forward and relationship build as much as you can. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We are going to turn off the recording. We are done for today. See you next month. If anyone wants to hang around for another minute or so, we will stay on without the recording.